Greetings from the East Africa Philanthropy Network. At the heart of our mission lies the amplification of local narratives. Are you aware of the amazing strides the Amazing Kisumu Foundation is doing in the climate change sphere? Join me, let's discover together. Thank you so much for sparing time for this. It's really a privilege. Talk to us about yourself, your organization, and the role that you play in your organization.
Thank you so much for the invitation and for this opportunity to sit with you this morning. My name is Dennis Nyakach. I'm a resident of Kisumu City. I have been living here for the last 14 years now, actually.
Yeah.
I didn't like Kisumu at first, but I came to love it.
Reason being?
I've never known the reason why I hated Kisumu. Before 2009, then I had to come here for work. Then I had to start loving it. And because of the hate I had for Kisumu, it made me... So actually, when I came here, 2009, Kisumu had just come from the post-election violence. So the city, this building wasn't here. A lot of these buildings were not in town. Most of these buildings you see. So Kisumu was, to me, was a jungle, and there was nothing beautiful about it. And at that time, I was new to Kisumu. Kisumu was now becoming my home. I started to now try to find out the life of Kisumu, what makes Kisumu tick and all that, and there was no information. So most of the time that I was looking for information about Kisumu, the only information I would get would be violence, noisemakers, politics. That was the portrayal of Kisumu at that particular time. Then, as I started working, I started exploring the city to find out beautiful places people could go, maybe where somebody could go for coffee, or somebody could go for a wind down over the weekend, or anything like that. And that is how Amazing Kisumu was created. From a hate that I don't understand up to today why I hated Kisumu, to something that I found out was beautiful about this city. Then I started curating content around Kisumu to tell people in the world different places to visit, things to do in Kisumu and all that. So that's how I started Amazing Kisumu. So that is how the organization started. It started by being a front for telling Kisumu stories. So I did that for a couple of years, up to around 2015. Then, up to around 2015, then I registered as a business. Now, because people are now reaching out to me to help them with, we see what you're doing with Amazing Kisumu. Why don't you help us with our businesses online and all that? Because my trajectory was how to use technology to communicate about Kisumu. And finally, I had a lot of readers from around the world who are, in a way, getting informed through my platform about what is going on back home in Kisumu. So 2015, I registered as a business, and I did business with it until around 2020. Then I was having crazy ideas because I was feeling it wasn't giving me the space to expand beyond Kisumu because of the name Amazing Kisumu. Then we made a decision, me and some of my partners that I was working with, that let's change the business name to something else, but register a foundation with the name Amazing Kisumu, hence Amazing Kisumu Foundation. So that's how Amazing Kisumu Foundation came to being, and we also took a different trajectory to do or champion whatever we were doing. We were looking at urbanization, to focus mostly around the changes that our city is going through and how we can actually be part of it, and even be some of the players in ensuring that even as we do urbanization, then we do a sustainable urban development. So that is why, as an organization, our main focus is urbanization, and also we are looking at it in terms of climate change. My background of study is water environmental engineering, so I'm also very passionate about the environment, and that is how we were able to include the climate component into what we do together with urbanization. Yes.
So, how has climate change manifested itself in the communities that you serve, and what are the most immediate challenges those communities face?
I think over the years, even just before we started the organization, we have seen, I've seen Kisumu change. And some of them have been a lot of, because of the climatic effects that we are experiencing, despite Kisumu or even just Kenya or even just Africa being a microcosm of the whole climate crisis that the world is facing. We are experiencing its consequences from rising Lake Victoria levels. We had, around 2020, we had facilities around Lake Victoria, actually here in Kisumu, that got submerged in water. Some of them went under. There are many houses, if you go to Dunga, that were living by the beach. They all got submerged. They had to move to higher grounds. So these are some of the things that some of us have seen, and these are things that we have seen in the last, actually less than 5 years, not even 10 years, 5 years ago. So that one being one of the consequences. We have always seen River Nyando breaking its banks all the time. We have seen changes. Like Kisumu, for the last 3 years, our weather pattern has totally changed. We don't even know when. Like last year was a very funny one. Last year we had a lot of rains almost throughout the year. There was a season Kisumu was too cold. For the first time, I had to put on socks every time in the house. I sleep in socks. I just don't know what was happening, but anyway, these are all climatic effects that we are feeling. So some of us are already experiencing this. Communities, from farmers, we have too much rainfall destroying crops in the farmlands, or sometimes it's just because now the weather pattern has changed, our farming time also changed. So most of the time people don't know at what particular time to farm, because you realize that when people plant in March, then there's no rain in March. So you are preparing, you're tilling your land to farm, but then you're not able to farm because we are waiting for the rains to start the early farming, but it's not there. So we've had these climatic changes also affecting how our farmers also produce food locally, despite all these other negative effects like rising Lake Victoria levels, River Nyando flooding, the cold that we are experiencing. Well, it is here with us right now.
I'm so interested to know how do the local narratives and the indigenous knowledge that you have shape and inform your climate action strategy?
I think most people in the communities that we work with, many people don't understand climate change. And I think maybe locally, people don't understand this thing. It's a new phenomenon to most of us. And maybe I'll take you a little bit back again. 2 weeks ago, I hosted a TEDx conversation here in Kisumu, and it was focusing on climate change. One of the speakers that we had was looking at the cultural aspects of climate change. So we've always had historically, they're called rainmakers. They're people who could be able to predict weather patterns and inform the community when to farm, when to do 1, 2, 3 things in the community. Well, right now we don't have those rainmakers, or maybe because it was an old trick that the experts used to do.
Never know.
Now we do. We work with the meteorological departments to tell us when to do all these things. So there has always been the cultural knowledge that, to me, I think is getting lost. Maybe we need to explore and find out how can we take this forward. So that, but at the end of the day, to me, the biggest thing that we need to do is how can we break down the understanding of climate change and its impacts locally. In the TEDx event, we were looking at how can we break down the science behind climate change to make everybody know how that they actually play a role in climate change. Many times, many of us don't know my small actions actually count a lot to averting the effects of climate change. So to me, there's a gap in terms of knowledge, local knowledge in the communities. Many of people don't understand. And I always tell, has always been this statement that people normally say, that a hungry man doesn't know the value of a tree. He will chop down that tree to go make charcoal to cook food. So because people there's a disconnect between understanding what climate change is at the grassroots level and also why it is important to protect the environment. And I think that is one of the things that we are currently working in to bring awareness and understanding between within the local communities, for them to understand why this is important, why even in your own household, the type of lights that you use play a big role. The way you carry yourself around plays a big role. And I always tell people that environmental conservation is a behavioral practice. We need to take actions around your behavior. If you are littering your surrounding, you need to clean it up. You don't wait for somebody else to come and clean it up.
Yeah.
So these small actions play a role in the bigger picture around climate change, and all of us have that role to play.
Okay. So can you highlight any successful adaptation or mitigation projects your organization has championed that can be replicated or adapted elsewhere?
There's one that we are just starting up right now.
Okay.
We're calling it Kisumu Green Pulse. It works in two fronts.
Okay.
The design is going to work in two fronts. One of them is to work with do climate change awareness around communities. Like I have mentioned, environmental conservation or these initiatives are all behavioral.
Okay.
So we want to involve ourselves in an awareness campaign, working with communities to make them understand these simple acts around climate change. Okay. And so the reason we're calling it Kisumu Green Pulse was because to us there's that pulse around, or action around, all of us taking the initiative. Okay. Hence the name Kisumu Green Pulse. The second front we're looking at it is to work with stakeholders. It could be owners of properties, owners of facilities like hotels, owners of businesses, to actually know that, like right now, we are talking about climate finance at the African Climate Week Summit in Nairobi. That is one of the biggest topics. Okay. But then people don't understand why there should be financing of some of these initiatives. There's a principle in environment, under the environmental space, called polluter pays principle. Okay. Where if you can't clean your space, then you pay for it, for somebody to clean it up. Many people don't want to pay for somebody to clean. You want to mess up your surrounding, but then you also don't want to pay for it. So these are things that needs to be taken forward. So we want to work with the hotel owners, we want to work with the establishment, businesses and all that through Kisumu Green Pulse to make sure that they first of all have an understanding of their actions around the environment and in a way maybe not pay us, but invest in solutions that will in one or two ways help reduce or mitigate the effects of climate change. Then that one ties in again with a commitment that we want to also champion with Kisumu businesses and organizations. So it's called Kisumu Green Pulse Pledge. Okay. So we have actually developed it already. We want to start initiating the discussions with local stakeholders for adoption, where now we have like a play that we have already come up with. I wish I can read it for you, but I won't. It's on our website though. It's on our website. Okay. Yeah, so if you visit amazingkisumu.org, you will be able to see the Kisumu Green Pulse pledge. You can have a look at it. You can sign up. So the pledge is a commitment that our local businesses pledge that they are going to commit to actions that are going to protect our environment. And we want everybody, not just businesses. Businesses can pledge, individuals can also pledge. And then we will be able to do even a list of organizations that are committed. And we just don't want to do the pledge. We want to see you taking those actions that I have committed to change the fixtures in my house to reduce energy consumption. Among very simple acts that maybe some of the times we ignore, like just switching off your light bulb if you're not using it. And it's something that I'm actually trying to practice also at my house, where if I'm not using the sockets, they should all be off. Okay. Yes, so they're simple actions, but then they have profound effects, because the climate conversation is around reducing the global world temperature to 1.5 degrees Celsius. Okay. So any small actions around just having a light running without our purpose, it's increasing into the temperature. So all of us can actually reduce the temperature by just checking this. They are very simple actions that we normally ignore. So those are some of the things that we are working on currently. I think those are our biggest projects right now we are working in, and that we also want to involve the grassroots leaders, organizations, business owners, and even individuals to take up.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So it's definite that there's no single entity that can combat the varied and the vast effects of climate change alone.
Yes.
So could you talk to us about that one partnership or collaboration that really advanced your mission?
So so one of the partnerships that we are currently working in or working on is with the World Urban Campaign, the UN Habitat Organization.
Oh yeah.
And actually we co-hosted an event with them. It's called Urban Thinkers Campus at the TEDx event last the other Saturday on the 26th of August. Okay. And we wanted to start this conversation with different people. So we brought in people from the county, the county planning department, because they're the people who do approvals of new buildings. And so we had a representative from the local county office coming to talk about the plans and all that. And I was amazed to hear the representative talking about, we have I think one green building in Kisumu, I was wowed actually. I was like, oh, I didn't know we have people actually went into putting up such kind of building in Kisumu. So we need to think around that. So we also had somebody from the social sector, then we also had somebody from now the environmental space, and then we also had somebody from the innovation and tech space, who they champion innovation and technology solutions around environment and all that. So this project with the World Urban Campaign is an ongoing project. It's actually in its 8th year running, but we got into the partnership last year, so this is actually our first year with the World Urban Campaign under UN Habitat. So we are looking at it again in terms of the conversations that we need to create. Conversation that we need to create to bring awareness and to bring knowledge to people, so that even as we think around our design, our buildings, or when we think around green spaces that we have around, or just investing in some of these spaces, it's important to think how it all leads to the greater good of everybody and the greater good of our planet. So yeah, that is one of the, I think I can say, the biggest partnership that we have right now that we are working in. Okay,
so how then do you ensure that these collaborations represents the community's voice and the needs they have?
So in our design, we work very closely with grassroots leaders, and also the eventual, I can say, beneficiaries, the people in the community, because they're the people who, one, maybe get most affected by these adverse effects of climate change. So even as we do design, even as we do planning, we have them as part of the design team, so that their voices are heard. We are not just doing this in our offices or boardrooms to take to them. We want them to be part of that conversation, part of that voice. Their contribution should actually count in the design and implementation of some of these projects, because that is when we can talk about ownership.
Any challenges you faced while building the partnerships?
Yeah, challenges are there. In terms of, one, some of these initiatives are really, really capital intensive. Yes, and I thank God we have the philanthropy network here can help us circumvent that. Can help us circumvent that. So mostly it's around financial. I don't say it's mostly. Financial constraint is one of them, because doing this is really capital intensive. One of them is also capacity building, and also just knowledge sharing within community, because like I mentioned, there's a knowledge gap in terms of people's understanding of their role, their small actions around environment. Many people don't understand it, and one of the initiatives that we also want to do is start working with children as ambassadors and champions.
Yeah.
Because when they learn something new and it's interesting, they want to go home and start practice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we are also looking at that also for continuity purposes.
Yeah.
And actually, there's a project we will also be doing maybe early next year. It's intergenerational.
Okay.
The approach is, how do you want to involve the young, the adults, and the old, all of them playing a role in pushing forward the agenda for climate change, so that knowledge is passed throughout the chain. So that is something that we are also looking at. So there's the knowledge gap as a problem. So we also need to create awareness among communities around practices that are sustainable, practices that have greater impact in the community, as well as the financing bit that we're also trying to work around. Yes.
Okay. Speaking about finances is a constraint, and also talking about philanthropy as an opportunity you could maybe utilize. Has philanthropic support been instrumental in shaping your climate change initiatives?
I can say to a very small extent.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think my experience has always been, I think a lot of people maybe shy away from investing in climate change practices.
Yeah.
I think I've seen that a lot. Because
what do you think is the reason?
People don't really understand the impact of waste. So people don't just understand why, or climate change is just new. So people really do not have a thought around it. And when somebody is finished with a product, the next thing that you think around is disposal. So we really don't have that consciousness around initiatives that could actually help the environment or help you.
Yeah.
So to me, there's just some unconscious knowledge that is existing around the environment. So people really don't think around why should I support this initiative. Though what we will be looking at is, that's when knowledge, awareness is important. So when people are aware, then now we can be able to start involving them. And I think one of the interesting things I liked from the meeting we had yesterday was talking about how do you entice these different generations to get involved in your initiatives locally, because we can't be working or thinking around donor funds all the time. Well, we can actually fund some of our initiatives even locally, but how do we want to make the local people fund our initiatives locally? So it was a good thing that I had yesterday, and I started thinking around it. Then I'm like, wow, okay, I'd never thought about it, but I want to try it. Like, how do we involve local people to provide local solutions? So it could be initiatives that one can, like the example given yesterday, you can organize a hike, but this hike, it is the main objective for the hike. I go for the hike for fitness purposes or for my health purposes, but we raise money that can actually help us champion some of our environmental efforts. So that's how I was looking at it, and we will explore that and see how we can involve people through actions that they enjoy or they get a fulfillment, but at the same time we raise revenue through it for furthering our activities.
Okay.
Yeah.
So with little support from the philanthropy sector, what are the non-conventional funding models you've harnessed and maybe that you're eyeing for the future?
Yeah, so right now we have been funding our initiatives with our own resources. And though we are also exploring grant support, there are applications that we have done. We hope they turn positive. They can help us further this. Yeah, but to me that is really not sustainable. So Amazing Kisumu Foundation is a great part of our other business. Because that is our philanthropic arm for our organization. Even our organization, even as we do our work, we have the community at our heart. That is why, in a way, they go together. So we have been funding it from the business to support some of these initiatives that we are all passionate about. And well, we will always be, the company will always be a big supporter of the foundation, even into the future. But we will also be looking at locally raised resources that can actually help further some of these things, even into the long run. In terms of, and maybe we will, through the Green Pulse initiative, working with the local stakeholders, we will also discuss and see how can we make the organizations to, what we are thinking around is coming up with a kitty where there could be small time investments from local businesses and even individuals who can actually contribute some little money as part of their commitment to environmental protection of Kisumu to go into this kitty to help do some of these initiatives and into the future. So that that principle of polluter pays still applies because we've just become lazy. We don't want to clean up after our messes. Yeah.
So how do you strike a balance between addressing immediate on-ground needs with long-term project sustainability?
So, well, for the immediate needs in the communities, we will be looking at the ongoing support will mostly come from our own resources, like doing the awarenesses that we want to do, creating partnerships with the local organizations and all that. We will always do that. But sustainably is to bring everybody on board. And to us, the Kisumu Green Pulse initiative, we want to bring everybody on board because if we bring everybody on board, we are sure that that will be sustainable because alone we can't do it. We can't do it as an organization. We will need everybody's input, we will need everybody's support, but we will need everybody's mind to actually ensure that we think together. Because if we can't think together, then we'll be thinking in silos again, which doesn't help everybody.
That's true. How would you articulate the importance of supporting grassroots climate actions to potential donors or philanthropic entities?
So, so one thing, also like just working in this space, and we've interacted with a lot of local organizations in Kisumu. And one of the things that we actually saw, and it's a discussion we also had with one of our partners here in Kisumu, and we were looking at design thinking in terms of the approaches that organizations can actually put in place to think through their projects, to think through their activities and all that. And even within the local organization, there's a lack of capacity in terms of articulating even just their projects and all that, and even just running with them.
Are there any advocacy or policy shifts you championing at either the local or the national level?
So locally, what also we have been discussing is around regulations. Also, now when we were doing our TED event, we were looking at 3 C's of environment. One of them was conservation. The second one was communication. And then the third one was compliance. So conservation, we're looking at organizations or grassroots organizations that are involved in the conservation efforts. Maybe somebody's doing recycling, somebody's doing tree planting, or somebody's doing something around conservation. Then the other C was on communication, where we were looking at awareness and communication campaigns that different organizations are doing. So which organizations are these that are involved in this space? What are they doing around environmental protection or climate change awareness creation? So that was our second C. Then our third C was on compliance. So here we are looking at the policymakers, the county government, the county assembly. We are looking at implementers like NEMA, KEBS, standards. What are they doing? So and it's something that we have just started. We want to have discussions with them and understand their specific actions around climate change. Then when we have all this understanding, then it will be easy for us to make policy contributions to local laws, because I know Kisumu implemented, it has an environmental act, which I don't think is being implemented, because I see people funnily, even within the city, we don't have trash cans. The whole city doesn't have trash cans.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
It is sad. Where they were, we had trash cans along major streets. They were all removed.
Yeah.
So sometimes you have to struggle to find somewhere where you can dispose your trashes. So we will be looking into the laws that the county has. How is it being implemented by the inspectorate or the public health department? What are the gaps that are there, so that we can be able to champion for better laws that punishes ills and actually make sure people take climate actions around their way. So we've not done anything in terms of advocacy, but this is something that we have already started discussing among our team to take forward to the assembly, but we've also started talking with these other organizations in the 3 Cs to start thinking together. Because and then that way we can now be able to have an advocacy plan for implementation of some of these activities.
Wonderful. As we wrap up, I would like to know about the future climatic challenges that you foresee. Okay, because maybe we have the time to counter them now. For the communities that you're engaged with, and how is your organization gearing up to address them?
Wow. Some of the challenges probably are beyond us as an organization. I'll also take you back. I think I'll be making a lot of reference to the TEDx event, because it was, we brought in a lot of different experts from different fields. And one of the speakers we had, he came all the way from the UK to come and speak. And he was given an example that I think for the first time in the history of Americas, there was a malaria outbreak in Philadelphia. And but why is that important? Even previously, even before that, I had heard or I had read where they were talking about, because of the increasing global temperatures, there's going to be outbreak of malaria around the world in different spots, because as the temperature heats up, malaria can actually be able to thrive. Why we don't have malaria or mosquitoes in some of those developed countries is because of also the weather, the type of climate that they have. It's not tropical like here. So here it's hot, mosquitoes can actually thrive. So one of the challenges that we will face if we do not address our climatic changes are going to be disease outbreaks that we will have no control over. So to me, that is the greatest epidemic that we need to prepare. COVID-19 will be child's play. But maybe it might not happen in our lifetime, but it could happen in the future. So to me, that is one of the greatest. The second one would be the health of our lake and our city. This lake serves a population, I think, of maybe 400 million people. It is not just Kisumu, it is all the way to Egypt. So if we do not protect the lake, if we do not protect the catchment areas around the lake, then we will be having challenges in terms of pollution or the health of the water, the health of the lake. Disease outbreaks, again, that will come from the water because people use the water. Another challenge that we will face would be hunger. And we're already experiencing that in many parts of it's called the Horn of Africa, and the Turkana regions and all that. So and we see these changes, the climatic changes already happening because our rainfall pattern has changed. So when it changes, we will not be able to plant our crops as is desired. So these are changes that we will see, that we will experience. Some of them we'll experience now, some we will experience in the future. But all of this can only be curtailed if all of us take our small actions forward to be able to reduce the global temperatures to 1.5 or less, and also reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. Let us adopt new technology, renewable energy if we can, solars. Let's not cut down trees. I love what the government is trying to do right now to bring down the cost of gas.
Okay.
I hope everybody can actually adopt these cleaner sources of energy, because if we adopt cleaner sources of energy, then we will be producing less carbon into the environment. And also, yeah, maybe we need to adopt smart cars. In Kisumu, I think now we have electric car charging station at Mega City. I saw that the other day. I was like, oh, nice. Yeah, so let's adopt these new technologies, and because this is the only way we can be able to make changes into our environment and our communities.
You've already touched on my last question for you.
Oh.
Like after we had amazing conversations around tech yesterday,
Yes.
so I was going to ask you about the role that you see these technological advancements or innovations play in strategy or project implementation. So maybe you can do a summary of that and then.
Yeah, so tech is the future.
Yeah.
Or tech is not the future. Tech is now.
Okay.
Yeah, because
and the future.
And the future at the same time, yes. So I think businesses should also adopt tech solutions. But I'm actually very happy because I've been in the tech space also. If I take it to a story yesterday in the training, when they're talking about Yalenda Young Turks.
Okay.
I happen to be their trainer. I'm also a digital marketing trainer. I work with a company based in Nairobi to do trainings for Meta, the former Facebook company, to do training for non-profits. Okay. And why is it important? For a long time, businesses and non-profits in Kisumu and even the region have been had not embraced technology as a solution. But I thank God to COVID again. COVID, I think, exposed our underbellies and exposed a drift that we had in terms of the reality on the ground. And we realized that many businesses and many organizations were not ready or were not prepared for what COVID brought. Remember, we had curfew. There was no movement of people or goods unless you are, they call essential services providers. And doing business was tricky. Yeah. And everybody, I think, had to research and start thinking of how do we work around technology or with technology to actually make people find our businesses. And so I happened to be a trainer at that time, 2020, 2021. And we spoke with the pockets of organizations. One of the companies that we partnered with was KCDF and TechSoup, both in Kenya, Zambia, South Africa. And we were talking, they were mobilizing non-profits within their networks for these trainings. And we had a series of three trainings that we were doing with the non-profits. And we were talking with them about the application, the mobile phone that you use, the apps that you have in your phone, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, WhatsApp. There are so many that have come even now, including Threads. How do you make use of them to communicate about your business, about your services, about your products, how people find your business and all that? And so these are some of the things that you were doing. And many people were shocked that, oh, you can actually do this, but then there's also the level, there's also the fear that people have in terms of, and it was both ways. So the seller has the fear that, how do I trust you that I will send you the product and you'll send me the money when you receive? And the other person is like, how sure am I that when I send my money, they will deliver my product? So it's a tough balance. And that is where I think I also saw a lot of innovations coming in terms of now businesses partnering with courier firms that were doing deliveries on their behalf as essential services providers. And now you could trust that, oh, now if I'm going to pick my parcel from this company, then I trust these are legit business. So let me pick, but then before the person picks, the company makes sure that the money is remitted. So these innovations have come because of the crisis we face as a nation and even the world in terms of COVID. And I think from 2020 up to right now, I've seen change in terms of adoption of tech solutions among small businesses. And I interact a lot with small businesses, because I do a lot of trainings with even other organizations that work with us to create awareness on technology among their network of small businesses. And I'm seeing mama mbogas, people doing mitumba, selling their products via Facebook, via WhatsApp business. So it's working, it's slow, but to me that is the list we can actually start from, because tech is so varied. I cannot talk to mama mboga about cloud. And though in a way there is an element of cloud in WhatsApp business, when you do backups, then when you use your phone you still get your information. There's that bit, but then you don't want to overload them with that kind of information. But the good, to me, my biggest win is to see them embracing or onboarding. So when they onboard, then they get to advance little by little. So to me, that is the greatest progress I'm seeing around, and I hope everybody plays in the space, despite the limitation that we also have in terms of the fears of technology, from cyberbullying to all these negative ills around technology that are there with us. And data protection, which is actually very, very, very key. So there's a lot happening, even in the small spaces, but we just need to catalyze them and accelerate them for the greater impact and greater use of everybody else.
Amazing. And we appreciate you for being here.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Talk to us about EAPN and specifically our audience before we conclude.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, yeah.
I happened to bump into EAPN in a very funny way, but it was very interesting, and I got to learn a lot about East African Philanthropy Network, and we've also actually applied as an organization to join it, because I believe that it's going to be a great platform for connecting local organizations to actually think together, work together, and actually that's a discussion I was having on the side with some people yesterday. Okay. So I would want to encourage all local organizations in Kisumu and even in the region to join East African Philanthropy Network, because this is going to be one of the biggest platforms that you will use to champion your philanthropic efforts, to get funding and get connections, create collaborations, so that we also, again, don't work in silos. We work thinking together for the greater good of our communities. So thank you so much, and yes.
Thank you, and welcome to the family.
Asante. Thank you so much.
Thank you.